Okay, so in this video what we're going to do is we're going to look at creating a tileable texture just from a random photo. I say random, just a photo that I've taken from Newcastle. Okay, fire up Dropbox, let's have a look in this folder, reference images, let's see what we've got. So I've been collecting a lot of images that I could use for textures and reference. So what we want is, we want to create a texture from an image that, ordinarily, ideally when we're grabbing images, we want to be taking images relatively flat on. This is a really cool example. So we want to be taking photos relatively flat on to be able to use as and create into a tileable texture. So ideally we want it to be sort of flat on, kind of like the example that I've just created there. So it's almost as if you're looking flat on with the camera, looking at dead on near enough, so you can create and sort of place this and project this image onto different surfaces, different faces, different polygonal meshes, things like that. This would just look wrong. So okay, so how can we fix this, or how can we at least partially, let's say we really like this building but we didn't have the opportunity to collect enough data, or we just went by it really quickly. Okay, so I want this wall, I want to be able to use this wall as a texture. It looks pretty impossible, but let's see what we can do. Okay, so we've got this image, let's go to filter. Let's go to camera raw filter, and we've got a really awesome tool in there which allows us to transform. It's a transform tool, and it allows us to redirect or shift the perspective of this. So we've got to draw two guides to straighten the image. So what we'll do is we'll draw a horizontal guide along this line, and we'll draw another horizontal guide along this wall, and you can see there, okay, that's kind of cool. That's pretty neat, in that it's allowing us to, we've effectively kind of flattened out this image, which looked absolutely insane from the image and the perspective that it was previously at. Okay, so the next part that we need to do, so the green lines are basically the horizontals. Okay, so the next two lines that we've got to draw are the verticals, so these are just pink lines. And what Photoshop's ultimately doing is sort of straightening the image out. And this is really awesome in that it's allowing us to kind of tweak this. So okay, yes, it's like, not 100%, but okay. So we've gone from, let's just actually reopen this. If I was to go to hit Command O, let's troll through these images again and never be able to find it quickly. Let's see where it's at. And it's probably gonna, it's gonna give us like a bit of it. Let's just Command Shift and S and save this. Let's just call this flat. Turn, hit open. Let's see where we're at again. Let's have a little look. Find this image. Yeah, hit open. So going from this original perspective to this is pretty crazy. So it's effectively just pulled out the perspective of the image. So now we've gone from an image where, had very little use to something that, let's zoom in on this image. Yes, okay, there's still work that you might need to do, but largely it still holds up really well. That's zoomed in at 100, that's 200. Yes, you need to remove things such as, I don't know, let's say the lamppost. Let's try to find an area of this that might kind of help us. So let's make this brush a little smaller. Cheeky little bit of cloning. So there you go. It's using that tool to, okay, there's a fair old bit of cleanup work that we might need to do on it, but that's a pretty awesome little tool there. So yeah, as an example, that's kind of how you might go about being able to then take this and break it up and use it as a tileable texture. Yes, okay, there's still perspective within this, but we could just sort of break that out. We could just then clone these different if I can just zoom in, have a little look here. Yeah, so let's say we needed to kind of create a flat section of wall. Yeah, we could just largely kind of remove all this, but that is pretty cool as a tool to use. So it's just something to think about, like, okay, let's say you're taking an amazing photo and you think, oh shit, I can't use that because whatever. Yeah, you actually can. There's a use, or there's a potential use for it. So there, I mean, that's holding up. Okay, yes, there's a little bit of work that we're kind of demonizing the image a little bit and breaking it a bit, but from that to that's pretty cool. And yes, it's very usable as a kind of if we were to then remove all these different bits and like just focus in on a particular section, that's a very useful, usable kind of way that we can use that. So that was just done by the filter and the camera raw filter, and then using these guides. Really, really awesome, really, really quick. And what's really good about it is, let's try another image with this. So let's try to find another. These are all taken from Newcastle. That one's kind of interesting. So this one will need a little bit more work. So that's the first. Let's hit Command C, create new image, just so we can kind of compare the two. Create, paste it in. Right. Okay. Filter, camera raw filter, and then let's do the same again. So let's say we want to try to get this flat wall. That looks pretty impossible to be able to do, but let's see what we get. Remember, it was the green lines first, so this is pink at the minute, so we're kind of going to struggle to get that. So we're going to tweak that a little, and then we're going to draw that there. So the main thing is we're getting the green lines. Okay, so it's a little bit out. Let's just draw this line here. So it's kind of working. It's kind of shifted. That's stage 1 of this, and it's given this taxi a bit of a fat ass, like over here. So if you compare the two, like, whoa, that is like, that's crazy. And then you can rework on this image again, so we can reuse that filter. So the camera raw filter, we can put this back in. So this is kind of done a little bit of correction on it. So let's use it again, see what we get. So remember, the green line is for the horizontal. Remember, run the green line along the horizontal, so it's kind of flattened it out. Then run this down the vertical. Down the vertical. So there we go. So yes, okay. You've got this kind of craziness going on here with this insane ledge that it's kind of pushed out, but the resolution, it's not amazing. You've got to remember these photos were taken on a mobile, so it's not they're not going to be ultra high detail, but they're decently usable. And then any correction that you needed to make, you could then you could knock this back. But that's certainly, if you did a bit of cleanup work on this, like removing this section here or whatever, you could certainly use this flat part of it. But it's a really awesome tool, really, really, and you can see the difference, huge difference between the two images. It is almost like bending reality. Anyway, okay, so there's two little techniques that you can use. So we've looked at the cloning tools, the stamp brush tools. We've created offsets to allow us to create tileable textures, and then we've looked at the filter, camera raw filter, to allow us to take really shitty photos that otherwise wouldn't appear to be usable, but we can get some use from them. Obviously, later then combining them with like the clone stamp tool and then other brush sort of tools, you would then go about removing different areas. But then this is giving us a lot of information to work with. It's giving us some useful things to work with too. Okay, cool. I'll see you in the next video where we'll be looking at Mudbox, and we'll be looking at a little bit of surfacing of working with our character and stuff. Okay, cool. I'll see you in the next video.